Hello, my name's Lester Langdon. We are here at StopRealEstateSnakes.com. That's a rattlesnake. And so I have a friend with me here. This is Venus. Venus is normally kind of like moves around a lot and is very active, but she's kind of quiet and subdued right now. We can't put her in a pen with the other dogs. She just jumps out. None of the other dogs have figured out how to jump out, but this dog jumps out. So and her name is Venus. My wife is the queen of the Poodle Ranch, and I'm the hired help. And we've got a herd of about 10 on about 2 acres, and they're very happy dogs. She takes them to dog shows, and we don't have any snakes at the Poodle Ranch. But when I say real estate snakes, I'm really referring to people. Venus, you're shaking. Why are you shaking? Dogs don't have poodles don't have fur. No, they have hair, just like you and me, and they're hypoallergenic, and so their hair doesn't fall out. So we're here at the Poodle Ranch, and we're going to talk about real estate snakes. And we'll refer back to my notes here. Sorry about that. I wrote these today, and I figured out that if I don't write down what I'm going to say, I don't always say it. So the reason we're here today is to talk about real estate snakes, and I'm not referring necessarily to people specifically. They're usually part of a bureaucracy, a large organization, or a large government entity, or a big lender, big bank, or a big government jurisdiction. And we're here because I enjoy helping other people, and we're not going to talk about any specific properties. We're not going to mention any addresses, not going to mention any names. Don't want to get in any trouble. And so we're going to make some generalizations. We're not going to treat this as an advertisement to sell real estate. We're going to talk about how to avoid real estate snakes. If you've got a specific problem you want to talk about, please chime in. You can send a comment, or you can ask to be part of the broadcast, our live stream, as we call it. And if you're a client of a real estate agent or a realtor, it's not our intention to interfere with any of your transactions. So take 5 or 10 minutes to think about who, what, when, where, and how, and you can come online with us right now, and you can leave your camera off if you want to, and you can just use audio, or if you want, you can just use the comments section, and think about who, what, when, where, and how. Uh, so, there's about 21 people in a transaction: buyer's agents, seller's agents, buyer's brokers, real estate brokers, seller's brokers, lenders, uh, um, inspectors, bug inspectors, mold inspectors, uh, building inspectors, environmental consultants, hydrostatic plumbing inspectors, 1031 tax deferred exchange, third party intermediaries, surveyors, commercial mortgage brokers, property managers, owners associations, appraisers for both residential or commercial, insurance agents. Oops, we got to remember the lawyers, because if you have the right lawyer, they can be very helpful. If you got the wrong lawyer, it can be very detrimental. And there's about 150 forms from national and state and local organizations that I have to know and understand. And plus all of the organizations, and some title companies and some lenders have their own forms and questionnaires and disclosures that they want completed and filled out, or just signed sometimes. You got institutions, you got agencies, companies, associations, taxing jurisdictions, management districts, historic districts. Right now, I guess we've got a small challenge in that the Harris County Appraisal District does not yet have out the tax bills for property taxes yet. And especially if you're over 65 and have a homestead exemption, the reason is the state of Texas just passed a new bill or new law last week. And the computer geeks at the appraisal districts have got to go through and figure out how to calc the new property taxes using the new law. And so that's going to be a challenge. Last week we helped an owner lease 2 warehouses with offices and reception areas in them. Yeah, I think one was 1,500 square feet. The other one is about 3,000 square feet. And the owner wanted to attend the first showing to a prospective tenant. And he wanted to get an idea if he wanted to lease to him or not. Wanted to meet him face to face. And the prospective tenant on the first phone call to me said, well, I want to reduce the rent by 4 or 5%. And I'll do a 3-year lease. Well, that's nothing special. So, if you, I commented to the owner and to the tenant, I said, no, if we reduce the rate of the lease amount by 4 cents a square foot, that's going to reduce the value of the building by $86,000. And of course, you've also got not just the income approach to determine value, but also the replacement approach and also the comparable approach, sort of like your house. You compare it to the other houses in the neighborhood. But on commercial properties, you also add the income approach to determine value. I do know that on some houses, they will do a gross rent multiplier effect to determine what it would be like if you in fact took your rents and multiplied them by a gross multiplier number. But when you use the financial income approach to determine value, you use net income approach and use that times the multiple, because gross is just not efficient enough. Maybe there be a reasonable, less costly, there may be reasonable, less costly negotiation to offer a free rent instead of reducing the monthly per square foot price. In this case, it was asking 68 cents a square foot, and the tenant wanted to pay 63. The prospective tenant, I should say. So, if in fact that had happened, meaning that was reduced 3 cents a square foot, that reduces the value of the property of an 18,000 square foot building down about $86,000 if you put the correct multiple on that loss of revenue. And of course, you can argue the multiple. You can argue 12 times, or you can argue 16 times, depending upon what interest rates are in that month and in that year. We have one more space, and we're going to raise that space to 70 cents a square foot. So if in fact they had reduced the rent per square foot, of course, tenants are like neighbors. They tend to talk. And if a lease is up at a current tenant's space next year, they're going to talk and they're going to ask that tenant, well, gee, how much did you pay? And of course, he's going to try to get the same rate. Say, well, you let him come in at 65 cents a square foot. Let me come in at 65 also. So the way to deal with that is to offer a free month's rent maybe, but put it on the back end of the lease at the end of the 3 years or the end of the 5 years. and give them a free month's rent, they're probably going to give a 30-day notice at the end of the lease and say, well, just keep my deposit in lieu of rent. Well, you're going to lose that rent anyway. So to sound magnanimous, just since the tenant's going to walk away at the last month of the lease and not pay rent, well, some tenants are that way, but not all of them. But if the tenant just walks away and gives you a 30-day notice and says, hey, keep my security deposit to pay the last month's rent, well, the way to solve that problem is to give him a free month, but not be the first month. Give it to him in the last month. And you sound like you're being reasonable that way. And you really are. So maybe owners should not talk to should not talk to tenants about negotiations on pricing, but instead, when meeting a prospective tenant, to size them up, so to speak, when the tenant tries to directly face to face negotiate the lease with the owner should say, well, my decisions are made by the other co-owner or with my wife after discussing your offer with Lester Langdon, our lease listing broker, and that's me. So the point is, the face-to-face owner should face-to-face say that he's not the decision maker by himself, and he can blame it on somebody else. At this point, and secondly, I should say, the co-owner, after negotiations, in this instance, the co-owner said, well, I'm never going to give away anything free again. Well, so how do you negotiate? I guess you stand firm on your lease asking price and you don't budge an inch, not even a nickel. Well, that kind of makes you look like a hard, tough guy. And so maybe since he didn't since the tenant didn't get his 4% or 5% reduction in price, which would have cost $86,000 in the value of the property, maybe it's better just to give him a free month's rent. But in this case, when they met, the owner acquiesced to a second demand by a prospective tenant, saying, well, can we move in today? And which is 2 weeks, which was the 15th, and which was going to be an additional 2 weeks on the front end of the lease. So that's 6 months, I should say 6 weeks of free rent. So maybe that's just not the best way to handle it. Maybe he just needs to say, hey, I'm going to let my listing broker handle it, or my wife handle it, or my other co-owner. Or he could just say, I'm just not going to negotiate at all. I think a small concession might demonstrate that the owner is a reasonable person. You can make it, just a week free rent. So maybe the owner should negotiate just a little bit and not acquiesce as much as this specific owner did. So if you would like to make a comment on a specific nightmare you're dealing with, please make a comment in the comment section. Or you can ask to come on the live audio stream and leave your camera off. You can come on next week. Next week, I'm going to be broadcasting from a seminar about Chat GPT and what that Chat GPT is about. It's artificial intelligence. And that's going to start at 7. So I think we can start this broadcast at 8 as usual. Hopefully that presentation won't take more than an hour. If it does, I'll just take a break and do the broadcast. If you need to get in touch with me, You can go to our website at houstonius.com. That's houstonius.com. Or you can come back to here next Monday night at stoprealestatesnakes.com and tell us about your nightmare and tell us who, what, where, and how. Take about 5-10 minutes. And we'll see you again next week.